All right. It is April 6, 2018, and we are coming to you live from the Studio OU booth here in the Oklahoma Memorial Union. We are Pop Culture Water Cooler. I am Kendall Watson, sitting next to
Eric Nepper.
And we are a weekly show, or try to be a weekly show, of pop culture, everything movie, TV, games, pop culture stuff in general. We try to cover that and try to pick a topic every week. We try to have fun with current news and really just try to make sense of what we're seeing and watching on TV. Yeah. We've taken a couple of weeks off, and we apologize for that. Spring break came on, and we are college students, so we were not here.
I'm not a student, but...
Well... Yeah, in spirit.
I'm a college student.
You're a college student.
In spirit. Yeah.
Okay. But we are, regardless, happy to be back. We are, I missed you guys, our couple of listeners that we have at home, our devoted listeners. Thank you so much.
What's up, Mom?
And it is great. How's it going, Mom? And it is great to be back. We hope you guys, your week is going all right. Everything's been going well. The weather's not too great today, but if you guys are in town here in Norman, the Medieval Fair is going on, so come and stop by that as always. It's a staple. Eric, have you gone out to the Medieval Fair yet?
I went last year. And the year before that, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm actually from Norman, and I haven't gone in years. So,
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's after a while, you kind of see all the people. And
yeah. I mean, but you go to People Watch, too, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a great place to People Watch.
Oh, yeah. I think last time I went, I think there was a jousting thing that I got really hooked into.
Whoa.
Well, I say jousting. I don't think they were on horses. Is that still jousting?
No.
Okay. That's just two guys running at each other. Yeah.
It's just absurdity.
Yeah. So, veering back to where we were, like I said, we are the weekly show of pop culture, everything pop culture. If you guys enjoyed this show, want to support us, we have social media, both Facebook and Twitter. You can find us at PopCultureWC. And then also, we try our best to get these recorded and able for rebroadcast as well on our YouTube and SoundCloud. Both search on there, Pop Culture Water Cooler, where we try to get as many episodes up as we can with technology permitting. We're still learning here and there. We're still students, so forgive us for any faults in between there. So for this week, we both saw a movie that we loved. We're actually down a host this week, so it's just me and Eric, but we both saw a movie that we loved and immediately texted each other and wanted to talk about it. And then it kind of bloomed into this topic that we wanted to explore even further. So our topic for this week, Eric, how would you summarize overall what we're going to talk about this week?
I guess we're talking about Annihilation first and foremost, and then movie adaptations of books. So I guess that's kind of a two-prong.
Yeah, kind of like
one.
going. So originally, yeah, exactly. We both saw the movie Annihilation. Just came out. I say just came out, probably about a month ago now, back in March. But we saw Annihilation, and then we kind of got juggling for topic ideas, and we really wanted to kind of explore actually movies and TV and book adaptations, and kind of where they do well and where they fail, and what we think we know, in our limited frame of mind.
What we think we know.
Yeah, what we think we know. You guys can agree or disagree for that. But as always, before we get into the topic, let's explore some news from the past 2 weeks, since we have had some weeks off, and let's kind of catch you guys up on what we thought was important in the pop culture world. So, Eric, I will actually take this first one. I normally let you guys go first, but I was really excited about this, so I went ahead and just throw it on here. But as of yesterday, April 5th, 2018, Terry Gilliam has officially released his first trailer for the long-awaited film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. This pet project of the former Monty Python member has been started and canceled twice over a 30-year period, and will release later this year. The film is slated to star Adam Driver and Jonathan Pryce.
I bet you're excited for that.
I'm really excited for that. First off, it's kind of obscure. Anything Terry Gilliam is kind of obscure to begin with. Yeah. But this is something that he has been trying. He started doing this in the 90s, trying to make this into a film.
Yeah.
There's
what's holding it up? Like, what happened?
They originally, I think it was they lost funding for it. I could be completely wrong. I can probably look that up. But it was originally going to star Johnny Depp, and the story revolves kind of around this guy who time travels, goes back in time, meets the real Don Quixote, and kind of a story spirals out of that. Mm-hmm. But originally they started this in, I think, 1998. Lost funding for it. And then it became too stressful, and Terry Gilliam shelved it. Tried again, I think, in the 2000s, and shelved it again, and then we're here now. But this is a film that has been something that is near and dear. And they actually, you might actually not know this, Eric. They made a documentary on the making of the first film, like of the first time they tried.
Really?
Called Lost in La Mancha. which is a really I say famous, kind of cult classic documentary of just like the failed man who killed Don Quixote, the first one.
Yeah.
So this, I'm really excited about it. I think.
I mean,
what do you like Terry Gilliam, right? What do you? Or do you care too much for Terry Gilliam at all?
I'm not too familiar.
Yeah? So Terry Gilliam, first off, he's the only American Monty Python member.
Okay.
Fun fact. But it's because he's American, he actually doesn't, I don't think it's because of this, but because he's American, he doesn't have a lot of speaking roles in their movies.
Okay.
So like in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, he is...
the coconut guy?
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah. That's Terry Gilliam.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but he also is a very, very talented director. So he's directed Brazil, which is a fantastic movie. He directed 12 Monkeys.
I'm familiar now.
Yeah, Imaginary of Dr. Parnassus, which I liked a lot. So his movies are super out there.
Yeah. Brazil is a classic, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And him and Terry Jones, like, both directed the Monty Python stuff together, but he has really emerged kind of as a filmmaker on his own, separate from Monty Python.
Yeah,
so.
okay, that's what it seems like. Yeah, I had no idea that the guy who directed Brazil was also part of Monty Python.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good to know.
It's really interesting. And he also, I just recently saw The Fisher King. It's kind of I saw it as a Criterion release, so that kind of tells you that right there. It wasn't really too popular. But his movies are super, just, if you've never watched any Terry Gilliam films, they're lighthearted in most ways. Like, even though they deal with a lot of dark subject matter sometimes, like dystopian societies and whatnot, they're kind of goofy in a way.
With a light surface.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And just kind of overall a little strange, but definitely worth checking out, though.
Yeah, cool.
So, and I will say, for this one, Man Who Killed Don Quixote, Adam Driver and Jonathan Pryce. Adam Driver, of course, Kylo Ren. Most people know him as Kylo Ren. From Star Wars.
Best part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Side note, I finally saw Last Jedi, but we can talk about that later if you want. Yeah.
I didn't know it. Yeah. About time.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Pryce, of course, is a very, very famous British actor. He was the lead in Brazil, actually. Mm-hmm. And then he's been most recently in, I think, Game of Thrones, which I haven't watched it, but I saw he was the High Sparrow in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah, he's excellent. Yeah. And he'll be playing Don Quixote.
Nice. That's perfect.
So, I'm really, really hoping. Obviously, this is finished. I actually saw the day after they announced this film, Terry Gilliam went on his Twitter and said he accidentally deleted it, just as a joke. Like, he's self-aware of how long this has taken, and how much hype is behind it. But I really hope it.
I'm sure there will be some cancellation jokes within the movie itself.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But I just for his sake and fans of his, I really hope that even if the movie's not perfect, I'm sure he's just glad to be able to finally tell his story,
Yeah.
So
yeah, cool.
So that's exciting.
That is exciting. That's I mean, I love it when they bring stuff back that fans want. Like if like the documentary about it was a cult classic and they're bringing this back, it's a good call.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Oh my gosh.
So cool. So yeah, it's going to release. They don't have a date yet, but later this year. So keep a lookout for it.
Cool.
All right, what do we got next?
All right, The Big Lebowski turns 20 years old, turned 20 years old last month. The film was released throughout many theaters to celebrate the one-pan cult classic.
One-pan, sorry, I mistyped.
I was like, what the heck?
One-pan. So it's not really news, so if you want, this next one's for you too, so I'll let you cover that. But I wanted to write that down just because we weren't doing a show at the time, but... did you know, so here locally, Eric, the Tower Theater, like they had a Coen Brothers... film festival for it and whatnot for turning 20. It was really fun. Went to it and they were serving like White Russians and whatnot. It was great. It was great.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so The Big Lebowski turned 20. Not a huge news, ticket per se, but I'll take any excuse to rewatch that film.
A lot of people like. I don't want to call them commoners, but not film people have not seen The Big Lebowski.
It's
really weird
for how popular it is. In the crowds that have seen it, it really isn't a widespread seen film.
Yeah, that's really weird to me because it's so important.
One of my favorite stories of one of my close friends, his name is Drew. I had a couple of people over at my house one time, and we were just kind of hanging out. I think we were playing a game or something. Anyways, I was watching The Big Lebowski in a separate room. On one of my roommate's TVs, but it was in like a living room area. So long story short, we're kind of hanging out for a little bit, and we notice Drew's not here, and we're like, where's Drew at? And so we kind of go look for him, and we find him, and he's watching The Big Lebowski. I sit down and I'm like, hey Drew, what are you doing, man? We're all hanging out in this room, And he goes on to tell me that he's never seen The Big Lebowski, but once he sat down, he said he just didn't want to get up.
Yeah.
He was just like, I just want to keep watching this.
It's weird. It's like a movie about just kind of nothing, but you just sit down and it hooks you.
Oh, yeah. I think it's easily my favorite comedy, if not one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Yeah. It's Coen Brothers.
And it's so much, exactly, and it's Coen Brothers, and therefore it's so much more than just a comedy, you know? It's not like a movie like The Hangover where it's like goofs and gaffs and you're done with it. It's like, you could read into The Big Lebowski for, you know.
They don't go for just like black comedy.
Right.
They go for a meaningful movie, and then the comedy comes from that, it seems.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though it has like the darker, like you said, kind of like the dark, black comedy side where it's like it makes light of violence and whatnot. It's still, it's just an incredibly deep movie once you actually start looking into it. In a really strange way.
Yeah. It's good.
But I love it. So it turned 20 years old.
Makes me feel.
If you haven't seen it, I know. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. When it came out, it was considered a flop in theaters. No one went and saw it for the most part to make its money back. But now it's just a cult classic, and I'm sure if you haven't seen it, you have a friend that never shuts up about it. I mean, it's so people who love it. So happy birthday to The Big Lebowski and the Coen Brothers film.
Yep.
All right, what's next on the list? I'll let you take this other one.
All right. Thank you. Yesterday, it was announced that Isao Takahata, Studio Ghibli co-founder, has passed away at age 82. Takahata was the director of Grave of the Fireflies and Pom Poko, and it will be remembered for his legacy. Oh, and he will be remembered for his legacy in filmmaking.
So I will never pretend that I am knowledgeable in Studio Ghibli. I've seen Princess Mononoke, as have most people that have ever seen, Studio Ghibli. I've seen some of the major titles, but I've never. Now, with that fact out there and that confession, I have not seen Grave of Fireflies. I've heard that it's one of the best movies of all time.
Yes.
And two, that it's one of the saddest movies of all time.
Yeah, it's like when you talk about sad anime movies, it's like Grave of the Fireflies and Your Name. It's like those two.
Your Name isn't. Did I tell you I saw that one?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, really so it's like you got to see Grave of the Fireflies now, and you'll be sad.
And I'm ready for it.
Yeah, and then you'll be crying.
I have heard it is, unrelenting sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is just abandon hope. All you who watch.
Yes, exactly. It's, I don't know, Ghibli usually has kind of at least an optimistic moral at the end, but
Sure,
this one doesn't.
Well, yeah, and they're famous for the My Neighbor Totoro and the happy and Totoro.
Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah. So I didn't realize, as someone not familiar completely with Studio Ghibli all the way, so Miyazaki, of course, is like the name of Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
So, and this guy, are you familiar at all? Like, is co-founder, is that true in the fact, or is it kind of like was there?
I'm actually not completely sure. I knew, like, Ghibli wasn't always about Miyazaki,
Right.
But he's, like, Miyazaki was the main animator for, he was just like the main animator for the longest time.
Right,
then eventually like started directing. At least that's what I think. I'm not completely sure. I haven't done my research.
That everything that I've seen, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Because of course Miyazaki doesn't direct every film that,
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I know Studio Ghibli, they really focused on, I can't remember the quote exactly, but it was from Miyazaki that said, like, we're not anime. We don't make anime, we make mangas. Was his quote and how they tell stories. It was like, we're not doing it. His idea in that was kind of getting at we are telling stories, meaningful stories beyond just pure simple entertainment.
Yeah, anime kind of has. Man, there's a lot of crap anime out there. That's just the truth.
Yeah, sure.
And you get a lot of like just shonen anime, which is fighting, like that kind of like tournament style, like Naruto or Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Like you get that. You get a lot of those trying to replicate like what I just said, Naruto or Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Because those were the greats, but they end up being bad, And so I think what he means by that, he's like, we're not making just any sort of anime. Like, we make manga, which is where, obviously anime comes from, and that's where the good stories come from, instead of like, because when you see like animes who are made anime first, usually the stories lack, and it's usually focused on visuals, at least from my experience. But like when you have an anime that's really loyal to the source material, to the source manga, then it's it's usually solid. You get that story that comes through that's more meaningful.
That's more meaningful.
Yeah, deeper.
In the story based, so Grave of the Fireflies, that's World War II based, right? That's about 2 Japanese children.
Yeah.
And I from what I've seen, I kind of get the idea that it's like that's all that it really wants you to know before you watch it.
Just watch it, man.
Just watch it.
Just watch it.
Okay.
We can talk.
I didn't realize that, and I don't know how old Miyazaki is, but I didn't realize they were getting up there. 82,
yeah,
man.
Miyazaki's old. Have you seen I think there was a documentary on Miyazaki on Netflix a couple years ago, and he's kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, he's a little out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Doesn't surprise me.
I mean, he's just kind of like depressing, but I don't know if that's from old age or just being a crazy artist.
Crazy, yeah. Well, I will say I am very, very jealous of the white hair, white beard. Like it is so. I just think it's awesome.
You'll get there.
His is just so like silky though, you know. Like you look at him and he's just a cool. You look at him and you're like, you could not mistake Miyazaki for.
I think
else.
of the sensei from Kill Bill.
Yes, exactly. Like stroking it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, you would not mistake him. You guys should Google a picture of him. But they both Miyazaki and Takahata. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Perfect. They both really brought some valuable stuff to the table, and it's really unfortunate that they lost an animator.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's always sad when greats pass away.
Oh yeah, but he will definitely be remembered. All right, so last thing on the list for news. And for those just joining us, by the way, in case you are joining us in the middle of this broadcast, we are Pop Culture Water Cooler. Everything pop culture, movies, television, anything in the news, and we talk about stuff that we think is cool. So thanks for joining us. All right, last thing on the news docket. I have the Hollywood Reporter has released that a current untitled Lord of the Rings television show is in development at Amazon Studios and is eyeing a 5-season runtime and possibly a $1 billion budget, billion with a B.
Oh my gosh.
Peter Jackson has acknowledged that he has been approached to producing the series as well. And on a side note, Amazon previously beat out streaming giant Netflix for the rights to bring the series to the small screen.
What?
So this has been... They announced this, I want to say, at the end of last year.
Yeah.
That they were thinking about it and kind of gauging audience reaction. Now it's announced, like I just said, 5 seasons. 5 seasons they're looking at. $1 billion. So that's $200 million a season, right? If I'm doing my math right?
My mind...
I really hope I did my math right, because otherwise listeners are
5.
pulling out their calculators and... While he's looking that up...
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. 200 million. But that's crazy. That is... to put it in a weird way, that's Game of Thrones numbers. I mean,
that's huge, man.
That's huge.
I don't know why they're doing this.
I don't really know either.
Peter Jackson.
I know why. They want money.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like in the creative side of it.
Yeah. I mean, have you read Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like there's obviously some stuff that they can go over that Peter Jackson's trilogy did not.
Sure.
But
well, really, all they're looking at besides just writing new content is pretty much the Silmarillion.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh.
But also too, that's
so boring. Though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so boring.
It's like a history book.
Exactly. So it's like they're really gonna have to be like either rewriting or what even, or just new content.
I mean, I think like The Lord of the Rings is such a epic and long novel. Like, all 3 of them are considered one novel.
Right.
But it's like, it's so long. I guess they could do an episode per, kind of event that happens in the book.
That's true.
But, man.
I don't.
Because there is a bunch that doesn't happen in Peter Jackson.
Right.
Just because it's a movie.
Well, and you know what? To be honest, on that note, I'd rather just see them remake the Hobbit movies. Like, that was... but that's a whole other rant I'll get into here in a sec. But, I'm afraid that they're going to, and I really don't want them to just redo Lord of the Rings. Like, I don't want them to. There's no reason to.
Yeah, it's just Peter Jackson's were so good, to be honest. Like,
right.
Of course, it didn't completely stick to the book 100%, but who does? But,
right. But he told the story so well, it's like, why? There's no reason to need to tell it again, you know?
I mean, it was so epic. It was so good.
Right. Exactly. And you know what, though? Devil's advocate, Game of Thrones is such a titan right now.
Yeah.
And being able to hold these spectacles in a weekly show.
Yeah.
They've shown that you can take the small screen, if you want to even call it that. HBO is so, larger than life with Game of Thrones right now. But, they've shown that they can tell a story that's epic and episodic.
Yeah. The pacing, I think... I would attribute a lot of that to the pacing. The pacing is brilliant. Each episode has something interesting to say, and it somehow at the end like keeps you wanting to see the next episode. You know,
right.
But
well,
I don't know.
and you know what? I'm not fully caught up on Game of Thrones, honestly, because of time. It's not, and that's the problem. Is I kept trying to in my mind find something that I could attribute to Game of Thrones being me not liking it, but I couldn't. It really was just time, because I was like, well, you know, like I feel like they're waiting until the season finale to do something, and it's like, no, they don't do that. You know, it's like all of a sudden they'll kill off somebody in episode 3.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
like,
crazy. Like,
it really is great.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean,
they just do such a good job of creating a world and an atmosphere, and I think obviously, you know, Amazon sees that potential.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I
mean, that's kind of what Breaking Bad did, though. Like, something insane would happen, like season, or you know, in the middle of the season, and so you would have that like aftermath of what's going to happen, which keeps you through the rest of the season.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Is I mean, Lord of the Rings is a healthy supply of characters they can build up. Like, you know, to have a Walter White or have somebody that's this so developed character that you watch the show for that character, you know, and see his development.
There's a lot they could expand on. I mean, just like concerning hobbits.
Yeah,
the beginning.
Right.
Like you could have like a whole season on concerning hobbits.
Something I want to hit before.
Kind of boring, but
something I want to hit before we leave this, by the way, is, and you kind of brought it up, is I think Peter Jackson producing is where he needs to be. I think I don't want him helming this, you know.
Because he did direct The Hobbit, right?
He did. And
what happened?
You know what's interesting about that is, so and you can look up the writing credits. Guillermo del Toro is under the writing credits, and originally this is true. Guillermo del Toro was handed the entirety of the Hobbit trilogy to direct. It was going to be a Del Toro trilogy.
That would have been sick.
Which would have been amazing. Yeah. Because if you take Del Toro's, you know, childlike dark fantasy, it works so well in the Hobbit style.
Yeah.
In his, you know, in his animatronics and his makeup, it's like
practical effects.
Exactly. Yeah. Practical effects over CGI. I think all my complaints with the Hobbit movies were the CGI, or at least the majority of it.
Yeah.
And I think Del Toro really would have knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
I never found a real answer as to why they gave it back to Jackson, but I think it was they were afraid it was going to lose money, not having Jackson's name attached to it. But yeah, it was originally Del Toro.
I mean, that's a heavy, that's a tall order for one director for 3 movies, and Jackson already said Jackson had done that, and I don't think Guillermo would do that. And
honestly, when you read into it and try to find out what happened, it really kind of turns into Jackson phoned it in. You know, Jackson phoned in the trilogy pretty much.
Dang.
So yeah, I think honestly, in my opinion, in my understanding, I could be completely wrong. I think really it was just he put himself so much into the original trilogy that he was just burnt out by the time The Hobbit came.
Yeah, I could see that. Man, because that was like a decade of his life.
Yeah.
In the original trilogy.
They started mid to late 90s, and it went until the mid 2000s.
Oh, okay, so half a decade. But seriously,
well, I mean a decade though, pretty much. You know?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, that's my biggest complaint with the Hobbit movies as well as the CGI. It was just absurd.
Oh yeah. Well, especially
it felt like filler.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and the introduction of Legolas as a character and that love triangle that did not happen in this, you know, it's
unnecessary.
It's like all these little things. I did see, however, a video. I always want to say Mortenstein because of that joke from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but Viggo Mortensen, he. For those who don't know what we're talking about, there's a character that mispronounces his name as Viggo Mortenstein and yells it. But Viggo Mortensen, they actually approached him about Aragorn being in the Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
And he said no.
Yeah.
He was like Aragorn is not in this. Like, no, why would I do it?
Yeah.
And no fault to Orlando Bloom. I'm sure it was
Of course he was like, yeah, I'll be in it.
Yeah. And I'm sure it was a good paycheck. And, you know, I mean, he had some cool Legolas stuff, but Legolas was not in the Hobbit. To disappoint you.
He was hanging out in Wormwood, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's called?
Yeah.
His homeland? I'm pretty sure it's
probably not. I don't know. Okay. It's been a while since I was
trying to test your Lord of the Rings knowledge.
It's been a little bit. But long story short, I really hope they find somebody who has pure inspiration beyond dollar signs for this. and really does something with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we'll see.
But that actually kind of leads us into our topic for the week. Our topic, as we were talked about earlier, is going to be book adaptations into movies and television. And normally, if you guys follow us, we do kind of a list. But this week, we're going to broaden it a little more and focus more centrally around the movie Annihilation that just came out recently.
Yeah.
We'll kind of tie it all together. But we're going to try to make sense of where we think book adaptations succeed, where they failed, possibly what went wrong, and just in general, their existence in the world.
Sorry to break things up, break the flow up, but when do you want to do your trivia?
Oh, man. And that kind of ties in because Trainspotting was a novel.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
The more
okay.
you know.
So for those who don't know what we're talking about, we a couple weeks back, we were doing trivia for each host, and Eric has some trivia for me. He let me choose my topic, and I chose the film Trainspotting because it's my favorite movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people who know that know I don't really shut up about it sometimes. So, so let's see how much I actually know. I probably don't know a whole
It's going to be hard, man.
Oh, man.
Unless you're just a genius.
Well, that's not fun.
I'm sorry.
All right, lay some on me, man. As long as they're
All right.
multiple choice, I'll be okay.
So, how long was the filming period for production?
Oh, my gosh.
Production for Trainspotting?
Okay. Is it multiple choice?
Sorry.
Okay.
10 weeks.
Okay.
B, 7.5 weeks.
Okay.
C, 12.5 weeks.
Oh, man, those are pretty close. Those are pretty close in number.
I made it super hard.
That's almost like close. I was going to think short and long term, but those are so close. Let's go with spitball in 10.5 weeks.
Okay. All right. Let's just move on, and I'll let you know what you got wrong at the end.
Okay.
All right, is that okay?
What I got wrong, so I got the first one wrong.
We'll see. Or correct. We'll see.
Okay.
All right, so... Actually, no, I'll just do it now. Yeah, you got it wrong.
Oh, man. Okay, so what was the answer?
It was 7.5 weeks.
7.5 weeks?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
So just under 2 months?
That's insane.
Yeah, just under 2 months.
Yeah.
I'm doing math, yeah.
That's insane.
That's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Danny Boyle was a young director at that time, too.
Those indie films get shot real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it really did. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
7.5 weeks.
So, number 2.
Mm-hmm.
How did Ewan McGregor lose weight for his role as a heroin addict?
Mm-hmm.
A. Grilling everything and drinking wine and gin instead of beer.
It's A.
B. A strict diet of lentils, fish, nuts, and rice.
It's A.
C. Hold on. Eating only 400 calories a day. And you guessed A? Is that your final answer?
The only reason I say that is because I remember reading something about not drinking beer.
Okay, yeah, no, it's A.
Hey, there we go.
Dude, that's hilarious.
I'm on the board. Yeah, so I remember reading that. And I actually, this might be hopefully this isn't a question. I remember him reading that he said he was actually willing to get into heroin. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor said he was willing to try heroin for the role, and Danny Boyle was like,
Hey, we can't have this on record.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And then it said something like he was later advised not to, or something.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
should not do that ever.
No.
Okay.
But not drinking beer apparently can do wonders for losing weight.
If you want to look like a heroin addict, get that heroin figure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, all right.
Gin and wine.
I got one. I will take that.
Okay.
I got one.
So, number 3. The toilet diving scene was a reference to what novel?
Oh,
A.
Man.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay.
B. Crank. C. Gravity's Rainbow. Super hard.
Yeah. I'm gonna guess. Okay, I'm probably gonna be wrong. I'm gonna guess C.
You're right.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
That's the only one I didn't know.
Yeah, it's Thomas Pynchon, man.
So
He wrote Inherent Vice.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I actually, so that was a Paul Thomas Anderson movie that he made it into a movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't like that movie, and I thought it was all right.
I don't get it, man. I don't understand why
I thought
people
it was
don't
all
like
right.
it.
But
it's
it's Paul Thomas Anderson.
Joaquin
It's hard
Phoenix.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. But
Nice.
anyway, you're
So-
2 for 3, man.
So it was inspired by it. Did it say how it was inspired? Or did it
No,
just say it was
I should have
inspired?
done my research.
It was just inspired by it.
now you got to read it, man.
Yeah, now I have to read it.
Gravity's Rainbow by
So
Thomas Pynchon.
I got one for you. So this is a little more common. You might know this. So the filming of that scene in the toilet scene. For those who haven't seen the movie, the main character Renton has stopped doing heroin. He's a heroin addict, and when you stop doing heroin in the story, it tells you that you start having bodily problems like diarrhea. So in the movie, Renton has diarrhea. He has to find a toilet all of a sudden. But prior in that day, he had gotten I'm so sorry. What is the word for when you take pills but you put them up your butt? Suppositories. So he had gotten suppositories of heroin to kind of like fill him as he was getting off of heroin. And so he put suppositories up his, but he had diarrhea, so he had to find a toilet. So when he finds a toilet, he realizes that those suppositories have come out now.
Yeah.
And so it's a super gross toilet, and it was already dirty when he got there. But in the movie, it looks like there's just crud everywhere and brown stuff. But do you know, trivia fact for you, what that brown stuff actually was and why it was an interesting filming?
I'm going to say fudge.
Yeah, it was chocolate.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so in the movie, he's dry heaving because of how bad it smells and how gross it is. But they said on set it actually smelled really, really good.
It probably smelled delicious.
Yeah, they said it smelled really good.
Lick that toilet bowl clean.
Yeah. So if you guys ever watch Trainspotting, just remember that that's chocolate. Man. So
potty talk.
Nice. I like those trivia questions a lot, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So 2
Not a
for 3.
problem.
I think you are still the king, by the way, right? Did you get 3 for 3?
I am the king.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, 3 for 3 on Nintendo, right? That was yours.
Yes.
Very nice.
Just can't.
That was really fun. We'll have to do some more of that.
You can't stump me on Nintendo.
Yeah, I know. I was really shocked you knew all that Nintendo stuff.
Yeah,
man.
you can try again if you want.
I might. I might. Okay, so reeling us back in, kind of ties in. Trainspotting was a novel. Bonus trivia fact: Irvin Welsh, the writer of the novel, plays Mikey Renton. Or not Mikey Renton, that's the main character. Mikey, I can't remember his name. Mikey so-and-so, the drug dealer in the film. He plays the guy that he buys the suppositories from is the author of the novel Trainspotting.
Man, is he the rough-looking guy? I forgot.
In the sequel or in the original? No.
The original.
So are you talking about in the original? No, he's not the guy with like the leather and the apron on.
Like the pointy-nosed guy? With the pointy face?
No. So he is the Irvin Welsh, he is the guy that is like not their usual drug dealer.
Okay.
So his usual drug dealer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that goes to and he's like,
almost a question I made.
What do you mean?
Who was the just the cameo of
Oh yeah, it was Irvin Welsh.
the author?
Yeah, so the author is in himself. So kind of steering back around the adaptations of these novels into films such as Trainspotting and such as Annihilation, which we're going to hit on primarily and then talk about some other ones. This is obviously not a new thing. This has been happening since the birth of film and television.
Yes.
But really, to start us off, neither of us have read the novel Annihilation, but we both went and saw it, and it is a very, very popular novel with the people that are familiar with it. As a film itself, Eric, how do you think this film did communicating its thematic elements from the novel form?
I had no idea it was a novel going in.
Okay.
So I thought it did an extremely good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least, I mean, I don't know what thematic... I don't know the differences between the novel and the movie, but I definitely got, like, there's, like, a writer's flair to it. You know what I'm saying?
I completely agree. And you thankfully, you kind of cleared up my kind of muddy question. Yeah, exactly. I think this movie, for us not being familiar with the novel, I think I watched it and I was like, oh yeah, this is a novel. Like, you can just tell.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not surprised at all.
There were layers to this film that were... I mean, just ongoing and ongoing.
There are so many elements of the film that pointed towards the same theme.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Yes, and that's a writer's knack.
And I feel like also, too, there were some things that didn't quite hit home that, and just assuming, I think, in the novel, they were probably more major moments.
Yeah.
That didn't quite hit, here and there. Like, most things happen. It's hard to communicate certain ideas from a book onto screen visually, if you don't have that.
Are you talking about towards the end?
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? We can talk about spoilers too. I'm not too worried about that.
Really?
So, if you want to.
No, there are people listening who I want to watch this movie.
Okay, well then we won't talk about spoilers. Yeah. But yeah, I thought there were some things in the film that visually did not strike me, and I thought there were some that struck me more than they probably would in a novel form. So what do you think, in the case of Annihilation or in case of other novels, in the novel films, what do you think is a major connect or disconnect that is important to take a novel and make it into a visual story?
So I think a disconnect is there's the difference between like experiencing something and describing it with words and then just shooting it with a camera. And so like we were talking about before the show started like this sequence in Jurassic Park where this guy is blinded. And it's a novel by Michael Crichton, if you haven't heard. But in the novel, this guy is blinded by that. If you've seen the movie, he's blinded by a dinosaur who spits in his eyes, and then he's like eating into his stomach or something like that.
A little terrifying.
Yeah, and it's terrifying. But in the book, it describes that like his feelings and like his discovery that this is happening to his body, and the way it describes that is horrifying.
Oh yeah.
And then just shooting it in the movie is just kind of like
well, shooting it in the movie, and the monster just jumps into the car with him.
Yeah,
and then the door closes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's like it's obviously Spielberg, but like he's gonna like kind of like sugarcoat over that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's like the point I'm trying to make is that just shooting something and then having the experience like told to you through words, like through creative writing, is much different to me, and there's a disconnect there.
Yeah, and I think you made a really interesting point that I saw in Annihilation is the experience. I think the main point of that film in the delivery was it wanted to provide an experience above a narrative.
Yeah.
And it really, that film, I mean, by the way, we're talking about the film Annihilation, directed by Alex Garland. A plot summary, pretty much. Oh, man, I should have pulled one up so we can explain it a little easier. But pretty much, there's this void energy area that pops up in Florida. It's in Florida, right?
I'm not sure. But it's called the Shimmer.
The Shimmer, yeah. And people go missing inside of it. It's kind of the scientific anomaly, and there's a team sent in to discover what is going on. Yeah. And that's what you need to know going into the film, and no more, no less. Kind of what you know to expect.
And it's expanding, so it's like a crisis. So it's like it will swallow up all of humanity if it continues.
Right. In this film, it's very... Well, first off, I likened it very much in my mind to the films of 2001: A Space Odyssey or Contact.
Yeah.
Where it's sci-fi, but it's not sci-fi and having a robot. It's sci-fi of trying to explain the existence of humanity in a way.
Cerebral sci-fi.
Exactly. That's a good word for it. Cerebral sci-fi. It's a film that is not afraid to go over its audience head, and it does. I think it really does. Yeah. It really shoots high, and it really expects you to just hold on and see how far you can make it.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think it provided this experience of, I felt as an audience member, I felt helpless in a way, like to its narrative, and I think that was purposeful because it gets a little convoluted and confusing. But I think, again, that's purposeful. Yeah. Because it wants the characters just kind of get lost in this. This isn't a spoiler, but they kind of like they get lost, if you want to use this word, in a void of just otherworldness, and this experience that they experience. It doesn't make sense to them, and therefore it shouldn't make sense to you.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it's like just absurd, like complete absurdity, and I think that lends to the existential themes of the film. Mm-hmm. But like, I kind of want to get to my comments, but I mean, I think on the explicit level of the film, I think it's horrifying, it's absurd, it's sad at times, and then it's like the end is just confusing.
Right, confusing. But there's moments of, and you know what? And there's moments of peace, and there's moments of happiness, and there's, it's like there's a wide range. See, what bothered me is when this film was being marketed, the trailer made it look like a horror film, and then it made it look like an action film.
I thought it was going to be Predator with women.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not. It's not at all. When there are moments of action and violence, it's like very sudden and quickly over. Like it's not a movie that is bullets, wall to wall.
Yeah. It does not glamorize the action. It just happens like realistically. Almost.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know.
And man, feel free. Let's dive into some of your comments. I know you had some talking points you wanted to talk about this film.
Yeah. So, I think, with the name Annihilation, it is definitely commenting on the philosophy, or I guess like, I don't know if you call it like, it's like a multi-tiered philosophy of nihilism, or like ideology. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like nihilism. It's commenting on that, in that life lacks inherent meaning.
Okay.
And the main crew is 5 women who all carry their own baggage that is primarily caused by, or causes various forms of self-destruction. This baggage manifests itself in 5 women by nihilistic actions or beliefs. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
complete sense.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you made a good point too about them carrying their baggage.
Yeah.
And so, and just to kind of read into what you're saying, so are you saying by them having baggage, they don't have a sense of hope in their existence?
Yeah. I mean, like, I won't spoil anything for anybody, but they each have their own lives in which something horrible has happened, and which causes kind of an existential angst because it's just so horrible, especially with some, one of the characters is like just kind of textbook like nihilistic problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know how else to explain that without really spoiling anything.
Sure, yeah,
it sounds really vague. But
yeah, and when you see it though, you'll know.
Yeah,
like,
so they're all just kind of depressed, it seems.
yeah.
And so
That's
they have
interesting.
nothing to live for, so they go in because nobody comes out of the shimmer. So it's like you got to have that kind of mentality to go in.
To take it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a suicide
Sure.
mission.
Well, and even that, they're going into the shimmer to find a literal, explanation of what's going on. But
Yeah.
I mean, possibly a meaning to their life too.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so because this thing is perceived as alien at the beginning, this shimmer, and so yeah, it might hold some sort of truth to existence as human beings on this planet.
I think it's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Sure. And that by itself, I mean, that, and you can see it with very talented screenwriters in film, but that right there is something I feel like you would never really see in just a screenplay. I think that is very, very stuck to it being a novel, and I feel like that's probably a huge point in the novel.
Yeah.
Especially focusing on the characters so heavily, which I think Alex Garland did a good job of showing those characters though too.
Yeah.
And getting their backstory.
Definitely. I thought it was I thought each character had definitely reflected their own problems well within,
Definitely.
especially symbolically, with the way some things turn out with each of them.
Right.
But anyway, I wanted to tie in this kind of idea of nihilism to more of an ideological societal meaning. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And so I felt like the shimmer represented a growing ideology of postmodern ideas of identity. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I'll explain more. In the shimmer, all organisms meld together and become intertwined with one another. The idea that all is all, and the idea that we are all intertwined without distinction or definition, mirrors a world where labels and definitions are meaningless due to this nihilistic outlook. And this melding causes some abominable, terrifying results.
And this is right here where it's hard to not talk about spoilers.
Yeah,
is what you're responding to.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're responding to. And I agree. I think there are elements to this film, especially in the very ending, that shed identity and completely just play on the fact that we are slowly losing how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive others in a way, I guess.
Yeah, especially in a society where you have spectrums of everything's a spectrum. But it's what are the consequences of that? And I think that's what this movie is actually. It's the consequences of that is what is meaning then?
Right.
If everything is everything, if everything's a spectrum, then what's meaning? You have to be able to distinguish between two things.
Right. And also too, and we don't have to dive into this too much, but it also plays on the idea of society deeming something as a threat, even when I would say it hasn't been threatening in a way, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Because without going too much, I mean, survival and, doesn't necessarily mean something is violent towards other people, but just because something exists, it is deemed as a threat because it exists in a space where something else exists.
Yes. Yeah. Or I also kind of got from the movie that, death isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just the unknown, so it's something different.
Right.
And that is especially hearkening to the end of the movie, I think.
Yeah. And I think all these ideas, especially that death idea and then the baggage these characters carry, I think it's just all these anxieties of this modern society that we live in that struggle with the various baggage that these people hold.
Yeah. It's a very postmodern movie. It's commenting on postmodernity so hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just because with this all is all idea. I think of Benedict Cumberbatch and Zoolander 2. You know what I'm talking about? It's hilarious. Okay.
I don't know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is so kind of going back to the idea of novels being adapted, the two that I mentioned, 2001: A Space Odyssey and Contact, were both novels themselves. And I think it's not uncommon that these three novels have such like similar ways of presenting a story as being kind of beyond human comprehension in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
Or at least initial comprehension. I don't know how you would describe that. It's like you have to. It wants you to sit.
It's like
it wants to be confusing.
It's like there's no way to read it explicitly anymore, like what's happening. So you have to read it almost symbolically.
Yeah.
At that point.
Exactly. Yeah. Because if you read it explicitly, it loses meaning.
It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
Postmodernity, dude.
It's crazy. So, in that way, we kind of briefly talked about the disconnect and the connect there in the form of Annihilation. Before we move on to other examples, is there anything else you wanted to add as far as talking points for it?
Man, go see that movie. It's so good. It's not perfect by any means, like we said earlier, but it's one of my favorite films of the year.
Right. I agree. And it's from director Alex Garland. He did Ex Machina. He's a young director, but an older screenwriter. He's been a writer, a novelist, a screenwriter, and then now directing. And he is just great at telling stories. He works with Oscar Isaac, who I will watch anything of Oscar Isaac's. Natalie Portman was fantastic in this movie.
It's my favorite Natalie Portman role.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Above
She's
Black
great.
Swan, man.
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
Tess Thompson, Jennifer Jason Leigh, they were all... Gina Rodriguez, I think is her name, were fantastic.
Yeah.
They were all great. Go see this movie.
There's some absolutely horrifying moments.
Oh, yeah.
So don't bring your kids.
Yeah, that's true. be careful with the audience that watches it, but it goes beyond simple violence. It really sends ideas home with you. I know it did not make a lot of money. I think it's actually considered a flop right now.
Yeah.
But I know in Europe it actually released directly to Netflix.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really kind of weird.
It's on Netflix in Europe?
Yeah, like it was a straight release to Netflix there.
Make a European account. Watch it.
Yeah, I know. Right? So I really support this because this is original, not ideas, but original presentations, and really a director trying to tell different stories beyond the normal Hollywood narrative.
Real quick, before we move on, why do you think it's flopping?
I think it's flopping for the same reason that Blade Runner 2049 was a quote-unquote flop.
Yeah.
I think it's not an easy watch.
Yeah, it's an art film.
Yeah.
Kind of is.
It is an art film. It's a beautiful film. There are multiple moments in this film that are just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And they're a portrait. I want them in my living room.
Yeah.
And he just is so good at just presenting these. I mean, for instance, there's a part when they see a body and it's a dead body, but I mean, he presents it in such a way that is just like this magnificent, presentation.
Yes.
And it's just there. This otherworldly. He has such an eye for these otherworldly concepts.
And the sound design lends to that.
The sound design, oh my gosh, is amazing.
Yeah.
Even the trailer itself, the sound that the shimmer makes, is amazing. Like I wanted it as a soundbite on my phone.
And it's like towards the end, like what's happening is like you think it's like a diegetic sound, like within the movie, something in the movie is making the sound, but then it turns out to be a track that's playing, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best track ever.
Oh, it's so
good.
It is just a movie that offers so much for people who are willing to read into it.
Yep.
And I think that's why it flopped. I don't know. What do you think? Why do you think it flopped?
I agree.
Yeah.
I just honestly I think it was part of it was probably partly a marketing issue as well with the trailers. I had no idea what I was getting into.
They didn't know how to market. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just so weird to have. Like, I would not want to be that marketing guy.
No.
So
no,
that's what I'm saying.
But then again, how do you market it? It's how do you try to get people to see this movie?
Yeah.
So, before we completely run out of time, let's talk kind of briefly maybe about some other like novel ideas and disconnect and connect.
Hot on the list right now. Ready Player One. Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
Ernest Cline, right?
Yeah.
Ernest Cline. So I have noticed with this novel, though, and this movie, primarily this novel, I have run into people that love it, and I have run into people that hate it. And it's like nowhere in between. Yes.
The novel? I have not met anybody who has actually read it.
Well, the one person I asked was like an 80s kid, and he was like, "Oh, this is just stealing my child." So like I think he didn't take it in the perspective of how it was presented.
Yeah.
And so I think he was just trying to be an elitist in a way.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but
hope he's not listening.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what I mean. Okay, so novel to film. Have you seen the film?
I have not seen the film.
Okay, but you've read the novel.
The novel is absolutely amazing.
So do you think it would translate well to a film?
No.
Okay.
I am not excited to see this film.
Okay.
There are too many awesome like niche properties that niche references that he makes in the book.
Yeah.
That I don't think even Spielberg himself would get. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
right.
also
almost especially Spielberg. Like,
yeah.
It needs to be some young director that is fresh out of film school.
It needs to be some hipster dude who likes anime. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I thought it was a little weird that Steven Spielberg was directing this film.
But I mean, it's definitely in 80s. So, but I can definitely see them taking this book and translating it over to like just an 80s love letter. But that's not exactly what it is.
Well, and that's popular right now. Is the 80s love letter,
and
especially with Stranger Things, and
I can see it falling to the Stranger Things. But the book is amazing. It makes it reaches into niche areas like Spider-Man, like the Japanese Spider-Man show. It reaches into anime like Evangelion, Bebop.
Wow.
Like one of the
Gundam, right? I saw Gundam in the trailer.
Yeah, one of the two characters in the book fly the Bebop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the main character has a ship, the Serenity from Firefly.
So,
it's just like so many niche things.
All these things they reference in the book, how does it reference it? Like, is it like, oh, they flew the Serenity, and then it's like you just have to know what it is, or does it say like, how does it, like, does it like wink at you? Like, how does it let you know it's a reference?
It's different each time. Sometimes like he'll be like, oh, these guys are in the Evas from Evangelion, and you have to know what that is. Yeah. And there are lots of things that I was reading that I had to like stop and look up.
Oh, okay.
Because, he's just
So he kind of expects you to know it in a way, or expects you to be able to research it.
Sometimes he'll explain it a little bit more. It depends on how integrated into the plot it is.
Okay. Like he drives the DeLorean from Back to the Future. It's like, is it... Okay, so and because of these reasons, you think it wouldn't translate well?
Yeah, I don't think it translate well because of copyright issues.
Okay.
Yeah, trademark issues, yada yada.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the first thing we saw in the trailers were like Universal Studios properties, like Iron Giant and stuff like that.
Right. And Back to the Future.
Yeah, Back to the Future.
And like, but it would even obscure like gaming references, like I don't know if there's a World of Warcraft, but like Tracer from Overwatch and whatnot.
That was not in the book. That kind of made me angry.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so because of that, you think it wouldn't translate well, and there'd be a disconnect, just because of the sheer number of
number, and like it would just cause a lot of it would cost so much money to make the book the way it is.
Okay,
sure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the other side of it, though, and I haven't read the novel, but it seems like the novel of Ready Player One has a rich world, but doesn't have. It doesn't seem like it's the most in-depth when it comes to themes. Am I mistaken there?
No, you are mistaken.
I am mistaken there. Okay.
It is a reference fest as well as a legitimate story.
Okay. So it actually, and I don't mean to sound like I'm saying it's void of themes.
Yeah.
But it seems, at least the film, it seems like it's very surface level, fight the power.
Nah.
Okay.
Nah, there's a lot more to it. I've heard from people who have seen the movie and read the book, there are more legitimate themes in the book that they tend to skip over.
Oh, okay.
It kind of ties back to what I said about cyberpunk, the kind of genre of cyberpunk, how they talk about identity politics. I love identity politics.
Sure.
How we're reaching this world where we do more in a virtual world, on the internet, than in real life. So identity matters less and less, and so I think that definitely ties into the book.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can see that because you have the avatar representation, in the Oasis, as opposed to,
and that's a heavy plot point in the book.
Okay,
so
although I heard it's not in Oklahoma, I heard it's in Ohio.
Yeah, which is so stupid. Why would they change it to
I
Cleveland?
don't know.
It was in OKC, which is really cool.
And it makes sense with trailer parks.
Yeah, and everybody's coming back to a place that you don't necessarily want to be, but I mean, it doesn't matter anymore because everybody wants to be in the Oasis anyway. So.
Right, so it doesn't actually matter where your physical body is. And you mean don't want to be as far as it's like trailer parks stacked on top of each other, right?
Yeah, they call them the stacks, and so they're just living in these trailer parks that are stacked on top of each other, and the main character starts out in a laundry room, just disassociating in the Oasis.
Okay. Oh yeah, I take that back then. Yeah, I think it does have some interesting themes, but in a regards from novel to film, That's an interesting point, because I guarantee you they probably touch on it, but they probably don't hit it as home as much as the novel does.
Yeah, no.
And it's tough. Again, it's tough when you don't have the narrator, in their exact words saying what's going on and laying out the film, you know. It really is important. Did you know, I don't know why my mind went here, but as far as novels to film, do you know Jaws was actually a novel before it was a film?
I did.
I think that's a case that would be the reverse in my mind, because and I say that Jaws is one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I really care too much to read the novel.
My girlfriend is reading or I think she finished it. I'm not sure, but she was reading it recently. And I was like, wow.
What'd she think?
I don't know. I need to talk to her about it.
That I feel like would be a case of it's better as a movie, but I could be wrong.
That could be. I don't know. It's like Michael Crichton. I mean, it kind of sounds like the same thing as Jurassic Park, though.
Yeah. Bo Spielberg.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, but really, even going back to this idea of adaptations, it's like my favorite movie, Trainspotting, comes from a novel.
Really?
Yeah, and it's in that case, then a lot of the inspiration for the movie and the novel came from Irvin Welsh's real life, occurrences. He was into heroin and he lived all these hard things. So I think it was almost not completely a diary, but I think in the way that book succeeded was capturing the real soul of a heroin addict in the 1980s in Scotland, and I think the movie Trainspotting is very, very lucky because while it might not have completely captured what Irvin Welsh's ideas were, I think it also was just a spectacle in itself, and that it was nothing had really been done like that before. And so I think it was original in its own right, but I think too also it was hard to fully communicate everything that happened in that film. And we saw that with Trainspotting too, because they took the sequel, which was called Porno, to Trainspotting. The novel is called Porno. They took it and they kind of took parts from it and then just kind of wrote other things too, because they really didn't know what to do for a sequel. Whereas in the novel, it was fleshed out in a full novel. So it's again these ideas that it's like it's harder to communicate in a visual aspect. Again, once you've already kind of said it. You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, Trainspotting too, it wasn't as good. I personally thoroughly enjoyed it, but it's just because I love Trainspotting, so
Yeah, I've heard it's really good, but just can't reach the heights of the first one.
Oh yeah. And I don't think it ever will.
It's kind of what I expected, though.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the best it can do.
And all I wanted to see, the characters again. I wanted to see Renton and Sick Boy and Spud and all of them. It's like I just wanted to be in their world again.
Yeah. I need to go back and watch T2.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I could just talk about that movie forever, but it's like what was important to me in a narrative aspect and in a novel form, as apart from just a film, the thematic elements and whatnot, I think was just important to me because I think I identified with it. I think that as a young man at the time when I first saw it, I was going through friendship issues that were similar to how they do as far as some friends, being good for you, some friends being bad for you, some friends being controlling, so it's like I think it was a very good coming of age story, and I think that was something that was easier to communicate in a visual medium, as opposed to a written medium.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I was really young to understand. I was way too young to understand Trainspotting when I first saw it. So.
Yeah, it took me like 2 watches before I could actually understand what they were saying.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So before we wrap this up, is there anything else you wanted to talk about as far as novels go, adaptations?
I mean, we talked about Lord of the Rings. We talked about Game of Thrones. Oh, I want to talk about Cormac McCarthy. Do you like Cormac McCarthy?
I actually haven't read anything by him. I know who he is.
He's so good, man. He's probably the best modern novelist out there right now.
Interesting. So he did. I almost said There Will Be Blood. He did No Country for Old Men. He did The Counselor, and he did The Road. That's the only 3 films I know, film adaptations of his novels that I know.
And he's interesting because he's also done All the Pretty Horses, which was also adapted into a film, but was not good. And so he has like some like legendary ones, like No Country for Old Men, amazing movie. The Road, great movie.
Yeah. The Counselor.
The Counselor's pretty good. It just depends on how you feel about it.
Yeah.
But it's like he's got like from one end to the other, good and bad.
Right.
But his novels are amazing, and I think he's a good example of like how you can do both bad and good. And
so why do you think he is a popular novelist to adapt into films?
That's
just
hard.
His style, or his themes, or
his style is like Hemingway. He's like simplistic and minimalistic. He just writes very like he writes as little as possible.
Okay.
To portray like it's like the iceberg theory, right? You
Yeah.
write as little as possible, but there's so much more underneath it that you don't see.
And it allows the expansion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that allows for like a really good visual representation. I think the Coen brothers are a perfect match for that because they show and not necessarily tell all the time.
Right. Well, and even like we talked about The Big Lebowski, it's like you can really dig into that film, but it looks really like light on the surface.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think he just does really good work. You need to read a lot of Cormac McCarthy if you want to like be on it. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Sure. Okay. Very nice. Well, let's go ahead and leave that topic there for now.
Cool.
I need to read some Cormac McCarthy.
Yes, you do.
Speaking of adaptations, just popped into my head. Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 is coming out soon for HBO. It stars Michael. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking so hard right now. It stars Michael Shannon and oh my gosh, forgive me guys, the star of Creed, and he was the Human Torch.
He played
Michael B. Jordan. Is that his name?
He played Warmonger, right?
Yeah, Eric Warmonger, exactly, in Black Panther. That's coming out soon, and that's got a lot of hype behind it. Fahrenheit 451 is a super, super famous novel. Of course, a lot of people, I'm sure you read it in high school. I'm sure you read it.
Yeah.
It's been shoved down our throat, but it's for a good reason, and so I'm interested to see how that translates into an actual film.
Yeah.
Actually, and in the 70s, it was made as a film by Francois Truffaut.
I think I knew that. It's a Criterion print.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I saw that the other day, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
For those who don't know Francois Truffaut, he's a super famous, like, the original French New Wave director.
Yeah.
And
he and Godard.
Yeah, like, and I saw that, and I just kind of went, huh, that's a fun, like, party trivia fact.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, well, I'll have to keep my eyes out for that, but that is very short and very summarized what we think of movie adaptations and TV adaptations of books, and they're important. Any last words you want to add on just overall what you think as far as what we talked about?
Man, I think if you like a movie that's adapted to a book or vice versa, do them both. Watch it and
give it
read
a chance.
Yeah,
and that's true. You run into a lot of people that it's a wall for them.
Yeah.
I either read the book and so I'm going to hate the movie, or I didn't read the book, but it's back and forth. And I say give them both a chance because most of the time the director is not out to make a bad movie.
Yeah,
he's trying to tell a different story.
Except for Aragon.
So before we wrap up this week's show, first off, we want to thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, we apologize that we've been off, but we do love doing this show, and we appreciate you guys' support in everything that we do. So really want to say thank you to you guys. Before we sign off, Eric, as always, what can you not put down this week, man?
Oh my gosh, I've been watching Better Call Saul season 3.
Oh my god. Okay, so I haven't seen season 3, but 1 and 2... Better Call Saul is so good.
3 is the best so far.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Return of beloved characters.
The last thing I saw was when his brother found the proof that that was going to be used against him.
And that
and then that was the end.
Yeah, dude, just watch it, man. I can't say anything.
Better Call Saul, and I absolutely, realize Breaking Bad is one of the best TV shows ever made. Yeah. Better Call Saul is just like it's another monster. It's like, it's its own thing.
It's for the people, everybody watched Breaking Bad, but then like Better Call Saul like filters out the people who like don't really care.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But if you want more.
Yeah, if you really like Breaking Bad, if you want more Breaking Bad, you feel like you're a true Breaking Bad fan, then you will love Better Call Saul.
And Bob Odenkirk is just brilliant.
Yes.
He is so good as Saul.
Mm-hmm.
It is his character, and Bob Odenkirk is not like a new actor. He, you see him in other things, but as Saul, he just makes it his own.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I forget his last name. The guy who plays Mike Ehrmantraut is amazing as well.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things. Like, sorry, just another thing here. Walter White was kind of a horrible person. He just didn't care about other people. Whereas, Saul just really he just tries to do good, but ends up doing good in bad ways. It's just like two different like types of doing bad. Two different types
stumbles his way.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
different
exactly.
ways. Yeah.
Better Call Saul season 3, man.
It's so good.
What are you watching it on?
Netflix.
It's on Netflix now?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Watch it.
All right. Well, I will.
Yeah.
For my thing for this week, I cannot put down. I mentioned it to you earlier. It hasn't come out yet, but the Arctic Monkeys announced a new album yesterday. They announced it going to release, I think, in May. I can't remember the actual day. But the Arctic Monkeys are my favorite band. I have picked up all their old albums. I've never really put them down, but I picked them up again just in excitement, and I absolutely love them. So I went and saw them in Tulsa.
Yeah.
At Kane's Ballroom
In like 2012?
Yes.
Nice.
Wow. How did you know that?
Yeah, I
just know things. It was about 5 years ago. Yeah, that this Katie and I first started dating, and she took me to go see them. And for those who don't know, it's like a little 300-person place. And now they're playing, the BOK Center and the Chesapeake Center.
Yes.
It's hard to get them, but that intimate setting was like the perfect way to see them.
If you have a choice of seeing them in BOK Center or anybody in a BOK Center as opposed to like a more intimate setting, see it in a more intimate setting.
Yeah. And they're such a club underground band style, or at least the earlier stuff.
Yeah.
That it just was perfect, and they were right at home, and they killed it, of course.
Yeah. Canes is awesome, man.
Yeah, Canes is awesome.
Yeah.
I cannot put down the Arctic Monkeys. If you guys like it, they're alternative, not quite punk, but just I don't even know. And now their new stuff is almost like 50s doo-wop in a way, inspired.
It's just undefinable.
Yeah, it's just undefinable. Alex Turner is a very, very fantastic songwriter, and I read he actually almost went into hip hop instead of writing.
That's awesome.
I was like, that's interesting. And you can kind of see it when you look at his lyrics. It's really very wordy. But Arctic Monkeys, man, I can't put it down.
Nice, man. I'll check it out too.
All right, so guys, thank you so much for joining us. We apologize again for having some weeks off, but as always, we will try our best to be a weekly segment for you guys. You've been listening to Pop Culture Water Cooler. Like I said, my name is Kendall Watson. I'm sitting next to
Eric Nepper.
And you can find us on our social media. Please come out and support us. We have a Facebook and Twitter at PopCultureWC. You can find us. Also, we'll try to get this episode and upload it onto our YouTube and SoundCloud. Just search Pop Culture Water Cooler on there as well. And we will try to come up, and also to add to that, we're also open to segment ideas and questions or comments. You guys can hit us up on there. We'll respond to you, and we'd love to interact with you guys.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to go on before we leave, Eric?
Go see Annihilation.
Go see Annihilation. Yeah, I completely agree.
Support that.
It needs support, especially not being financially set very well, and it's a fantastic film and really worth your time.
Yeah, go support that movie.
All right, well, we will see you guys hopefully next week, but check on the social media to see if we have any updates, and we want to thank you guys as always. You've been listening to Pop Culture Water Cooler at Studio OU.
All right, bye.
Bye.